Home prices in the Hamilton-Burlington area are dropping. So is now a good time to make your move into the market? Michael St. Jean from St. Jean Realty joins us now with the latest housing forecast. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Annette. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So I've noticed just anecdotally in my own neighborhood, houses that sold during the pandemic are up for sale again with just, a little bit more expensive. Is this people kind of trying to get out of the market?
I think we're sort of at a bit of a transition point where, we've seen the market going crazy for the last 24 months or so. And, with interest rates beginning to rise starting in around, late February, things have started to change. Buyers have gotten a little nervous, a little more fear. Budgets starting to shrink, of course, as interest rates rise. Your borrowing power as a buyer starts to decrease. So, what you would have been qualified or approved for back in February looks very different today. And so we're at a bit of a crossroads where, buyers are more restricted financially. They're a bit nervous because they feel that values are going to drop or continue to drop. And of course, sellers are a little stubborn with their listing prices and sort of holding firm.
So would you describe it as a buyer's market or a seller's market, or is it neither right now? Or are we just kind of somewhere in the middle?
Technically, we're depending on the area, of course, we're somewhere in the middle. We're in a balanced market, although in most communities still veering in even just slightly to the seller's market territory. Now, given where we've come from in the last couple of years, it definitely might feel a little more like a buyer's market, but technically inventory is very low. And we are, in most cases, still in somewhat of a seller's market.
Okay, so what would you recommend then if someone is looking to buy their first home?
It's definitely a challenge. As of this moment, buyers are actually worse off than they were back in February at the peak of the market. Prices have been softening a little bit every month since about the beginning of March. Which would, make you think as a buyer, well, that's good, right? And values are starting to come down. Maybe I'm going to get a little bit more for my money. Unfortunately, values, they have come down, but, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 20%, give or take the community. But at the same time, interest rates have been going up at one of the fastest paces we've seen in Canadian history. And so any slight gains as a result of values coming down have been offset by interest rates increasing. So you're today, unfortunately, even with a bit of a decline in home values, actually getting less for your money. So it's very difficult. My recommendation would be to, as a buyer, and I know it sounds a little crazy, and what I've been recommending to my clients has been to get into the market as soon as they can, because I don't feel that values are going to come down enough to offset the increase in borrowing costs.
Mm-hmm. And they're expected to keep increasing the borrowing costs. I've noticed homes for sale are staying on the market quite a bit longer than before, than we, at the height of the pandemic when everything was just, they were being sold before they were being listed.
Yeah, we've got more inventory now, although if you're looking at it from a historical perspective, inventory is actually still quite low. If you take out the last couple of years during the pandemic, and if we had looked at the data today from, let's say, September, we'd be looking at it and saying, well, this is some of the lowest inventory we've ever seen. Although we've come from a place that was, quite almost scary low inventory. And in comparison to that, we have more inventory. So with a bit more inventory on the market, you are going to see homes staying on the market a little bit longer. So, whereas a house might have sold in 3 or 4 or 5 days before, there are still homes selling within a few days now. But I'd say the majority of homes, if you're priced right, if you're marketed correctly, 2, 3, 4 weeks is not uncommon. But I would say that it's a little bit more normal, although still on the quick side.
Right, right. Okay, Michael St. Jean from St. Jean Realty, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.